Talking AMA. We are here once again, and it's a bright May day. It's a bright Springs day. It's a lovely day. It feels like summer has come. It's almost as if we completely skipped spring. And I understand that the weather will be worsening soon, but let's celebrate the fine weather by making a sacrifice to Mithras, the unconquered sun. And, generally feeling a little bit of seasonal cheer. I certainly am. I always want to say thank you very much for those of you who tune in to these AMAs as they go out live. It means something to me. I'm not sure what, but it does. The fact that there are so many of you, one right now, who decide that they're going to watch this live as I record it and ask me the most random of questions. The fact that you turn up, you tune in, you leave a thumbs up to give me your encouragement. I don't need your validation, but encouragement is always nice. And, well, this is a nice place to do it. I think you'll agree. So, right now, let's get walking, let's get talking. And Mr. Mister says, heyo, heyo indeed, Mr. Mister. Have I seen Sinners yet? I have just come out of seeing Sinners, Mr. Mister. I am already in the city today. So I am somewhere slightly different for my walking, talking AMA as I'm on the way to my game. And yeah, it was a very, very good film. I really enjoyed Sinners, a lovely new... actually, I'm not going to spoil it. I'm not going to say anything about it other than it is a movie that is definitely worth seeing. Definitely worth seeing in the cinema. And what's more, don't read up on it if you can help it beforehand. The trailer is probably enough. You can watch that and get a feel for it. But it is such a fantastic film. I really enjoyed it. Probably might be my movie of the year so far. Strange Taha says, you look like you would give some mean sloppy toppy. I'm not sure what sloppy toppy is, Strange Taha, but if you feel like you'd like to write about it in the chat, we'll see whether I agree. Mr. Mister is likewise confused by that suggestion. Not a term in my everyday vernacular, sloppy toppy. If those of you watching right now can give a quick thumbs up to the video, that would be fantastic. It will mean this gets to other people quicker. Apparently that's how the algorithm works. I don't speak algorithm, but I'm told that's how it functions. So, those of you watching today, how are you? How are you doing? Have you been enjoying the latest content on the Gentleman Game YouTube channel, of which there has been a lot? I mentioned last week that I've made more videos, I think. The sun! I have made more videos in the last 6 months or so than in the last 6 years. And I think that is definitely true. I have been cranking out videos at a rate of knots. Some of them are planned out, some of them are most definitely not. And these AMAs, not only do they fill up a Wednesday, but they also seem to be quite popular. Also, what appears to be quite popular is the recent live plays or let's plays I've been doing of... oh, we're about to get blasted by the sun again. We're not going to be able to avoid it, I'm afraid. Of 5 dates. I mean, the Project Zomboid let's play was reasonably popular, but 5 dates was considerably more so, which says something about all of you, I guess. And, and your preferences. What it informs me is you want to see more FMV games, and FMV games I can do because I have bought a bundle of them way back, and it will be from that bundle I pull these games. So I think I might have played one of them before, so I will be going for games I have not tackled. Let's see. Oh, we got a question. Mad Science Gaming wants to know, hey, do you know if we will get more Chronicles of Darkness content? I don't know. That is entirely up to Paradox Interactive. Paradox Interactive have not approved any pictures from Onyx Path Publishing regarding the Chronicles of Darkness. I can't speak for any other companies. I can't speak for Paradox. So the truth is, I don't know. I don't know what the future holds for Chronicles. I hope we get to see it come back. My expectation, completely unfounded, is Chronicles of Darkness will probably be harvested for its most popular part and added to the World of Darkness. That's my expectation. I imagine that if you see a Changeling, the Dreaming 5th edition, it will probably contain a lot of Changeling the Lost. That's a guess, a complete guess. Let's get the sun out from behind us because you won't be able to see a damn thing. Yeah, that is a complete guess. But my expectation is Chronicles of Darkness is probably not going to see any new games anytime soon. But you would have to ask Paradox Interactive about that. My thing right now is Curseborne more than Chronicles and World of Darkness. It's giving me a lot to think about. I'm running 3 games of it right now, 3 campaigns, all different stories, very different tones. And I'm finding it scratches that modern urban horror itch that I have. I should probably see a doctor about that. So let's find some shade. Let's find some shade, shall we? So that we're not being completely whitewashed by the sun. Mr. Mister, any other games you think of playing for Let's Plays? No, not really. I mean, I'm pretty flexible. I'll go with whatever people are interested in watching, more or less, as long as there's something I can riff on. Someone said to me not long ago, have you thought about doing a Let's Play of Disco Elysium? And I think Disco Elysium is a fantastic game, but it's probably not the kind of thing I would do a Let's Play of, because it's a game that is so dialogue heavy, so well written at that anything I would add would pretty much interfere with gameplay rather than enhance it with humour. There we go. Into the dark. Just how I like it. So, I don't know. If I was to do another Let's Play, especially of an RPG, a long RPG, it would need to be one where I can add an awful lot of colour to it. I haven't done any choice of games, Mr. Mister. Unless Heart of the Forest is one. I did that when it was new. I think I was comped it because I was working on World of Darkness at the time. I've not played any of the vampire ones. Corbin asks, would you think Paradox might migrate Promethean to World of Darkness 5th edition? I remember when that was part of the discussion. This was way back when you might recall, if you're a big World of Darkness fan, there was discussion of what was called One World of Darkness. There was chatter about putting Promethean in the World of Darkness then. I've heard absolutely nothing about it since. The person who was talking about it no longer works for Paradox. And I don't think Promethean is necessarily so popular a game line that it would justify a brand new core rulebook. But things change. What is the most likely outcome, in my view? And this defines an awful lot of Paradox's decisions when it comes to the World of Darkness, in my view. Again, all opinion. If a video game company comes to them and says they want to license a particular game line and make a video game out of it, then they will probably launch a new rulebook. You can see that with Hunter, you can see it with Werewolf, and I wouldn't be surprised, given that Mage 5th edition is going to come out at some point, if we see a video game for that from someone, somewhere. But we have already seen, I think, a choose-your-own-adventure style Mage mobile game, wasn't it? A long while ago now. I don't think we've seen anything else from Mage. It would be a pretty difficult game to translate to video game if it was a game in its, I guess, purest interpretation of Mage. You'd have to pick certain elements, drop others, and I know that the Mage the Ascension fan base has always been a fragmented, opinionated monster. So the chances of disappointment would be high, but that wouldn't stop them if it was a moneymaker, you know? So I doubt it. I don't think Paradox are going to migrate Promethean to World of Darkness, but that when all of a sudden a small-time, indie video game publisher says, "Hey, we want to make a visual novel of Promethean the Created," they might think this is going to reignite interest. We can launch an RPG, a TTRPG off the back of it, and that's all it takes. How did I come to the idea of Curseborne, asked Mad Science Gaming. Well, I didn't come up with it. I co-authored it. I did a little bit of development on it. I'm developing some books for it now. The game, I suppose, is the joint imagination project of Danielle Lauzon, Eddie Webb, myself, Dixie Cochran, a whole group of spectacular authors who you can see in the credits for Curseborne and the Curseborne Ashcan, in fact. Condensed down, refined, we made it into the game we needed it to be and wanted it to be, and yeah, we're really happy with the result of it. The fact that it isn't classic horror, I suppose, in the way that a lot of World of Darkness games are. It has a more urban horror, more creepypasta feel to it, which I know not everyone understands, but that sort of creeping, nasty horror, I think, the horror of superstition and conspiracy, but not necessarily grand conspiracy, the horror of paranoia, of liminality, of spaces that you can get lost in and basically forgotten about. That is Curseborne, I think, more than some grand sweeping vampiric sect war. And Mad Science Gaming's been running a lot of Hero System, 6th edition, running 3 games. I don't know Hero System, I don't think. Corbin says, what archetype of adventuring are your Curseborne players partaking in? I keep thinking of my players as investigators, but I don't know what other type of protagonist type they would be. So investigations are always a very good way to go with any horror game, and you don't need to necessarily break that mold. I think it's a mold that functions. It is an archetype, it isn't a stereotype. And investigation games work really, really well for horror. You want players to feel like they can look into things, unlock mysteries and secrets, and improve themselves, maybe face down some great monstrosity, but they don't always need to be combat driven. I think, well, my current games, we have an investigative, a very supernatural mystery, a sort of demon infestation, which I've been doing in the final bout, where a curse has led to essentially a demonic entity, an outsider, being able to creep through a liminal space and maybe infest an entire city with suffering and a desire to do violence in a very Needful Things kind of a fashion. Leland Gaunt, if you're familiar with that novel, Needful Things, not Stranger Things, that would be terrible, by Stephen King. And the other one is a more straightforward murder mystery, where most of the people that the characters are interacting with are mortal. So I've got a very supernatural one, I've got a very mortal one. The final one is very much territorial. It is based more on politics, more on intrigue and gaining dirt that you can sling against people, and it's more of a social game than one that is dependent on investigation tricks. There is, of course, still combat. Role-playing games almost always have combat, despite how in reality we very rarely come to blows over things. But I would say that my players use intrigue and investigation tricks, influence, I should say, and investigation tricks more than they use combat tricks right now, based on how the games are going. And yeah, it's good fun. It is really good fun. I have really been enjoying Curseborne. Its versatility is one of its strongest suits. The fact that I can run those 3 games and all of them feel like Curseborne without feeling stymied by, a decades-long meta plot or existing player expectation, that's a major thing. The fact that secrets, mysteries, surprises can still alarm, shock, surprise players in Curseborne, whereas with World of Darkness, I found that after running it for something like 25 years, I was ceasing to be surprised, and my players were as well, because everyone knew what those games were, what they were about, and even with an edition change, it was still the same World of Darkness that you can love, but you can also predict. Mrs. Promethean. Well, Mr. Promethean second edition came out. It is available on Drive-Thru RPG, along with a Night Horrors book. And I mentioned in last week's AMA that the second edition Chronicles of Darkness games are very 20th anniversary like, in the sense that they contain absolutely everything you will need to run a game and play a game, run a long chronicle. So do pick up Promethean the Created second edition if you want even worse things to encounter. You can get Night Horrors, what is it, the Tormented, I want to say. I worked on it, but it was a long time ago. And if you want even more Promethean content, I recommend the Contagion Chronicle, because that has got a lot of Promethean stuff in. DJ Kehoe says, have you checked out the Monty Python TTRPG? My best friend helped kickstart it and got it recently. I haven't yet. One of my friends and co-workers co-wrote it, I believe, and I haven't taken a look at it yet. I've heard very good things, surprisingly good things, because a lot of the time tie-in games, I find, or maybe this is more of a video game problem, or used to be, tend to rely more on sizzle than steak, if that makes sense. They are more about flavor than depth. And apparently the Monty Python RPG is really well done. Obviously it's not a patch on the They Came From RPGs, but it's doing its best. Ham and Egg Sarni says, how did you find it working on a video game story with Vampire the Masquerade Swan Song in comparison to writing a TTRPG? Very much the same, honestly. I applied the same kind of rules to my writing and attack the job in the same kind of way. I do not have a grand strategy. I'm not terribly flashy about how I work. I don't need to be in the right mindset. I am someone who can just sit down and hammer away at the keyboard. And I still abide by the idea that every character has got to have something likable, something dislikable. They've got to want something, they've got to fear something, and almost every paragraph in a game has got to have a plot hook or allusion to something going on, so that, again, it implies depth even if you can't access it. And the same applied to Swan Song, which was a lot of fun. And I know, there's plenty of people who said, oh, this isn't the AAA game I was hoping for. It was never intended to be a AAA game. And that's your expectation. Not every game can be by EA and Ubisoft, I think it's a really good story, and I'm not the lead writer on it or anything like that. A really good story, really well told, and by a company that really loves the property. And I think it feels like Vampire the Masquerade. That's one of the things I think Swansong does so well. Probably better than the Battle Royale game Blood Hunt, although I understand there's big fans of Blood Hunt, and I don't know, it might be better than Bloodlines 2 in this respect. I haven't played this version of Bloodlines 2. I played the version way back when I was working on V5, and it's changed a lot since then, I have no doubt. But Swansong feels like a TTRPG session with graphics, and I think that's what I like out of it more than anything else. Will we get a playthrough of Bloodlines 2, asks Mr. Maybe, we'll have to see. I don't know, I'm still not quite there yet on enthusiasm for the World of Darkness. Again, I spent a long time working on the World of Darkness, or running the World of Darkness, and I don't know, we'll have to see. I mean, if someone gets it for me, it's more likely, because I'm not buying it on release. I never buy games on release, they're far too buggy. The same reason I'm not, as tempting as it is, I'm not getting a Switch 2 on release, even though I love Mario Kart and I'm quite good at it. I would rather wait for a few patches, a little bit of DLC, and a few more games to come out. Joel001, I spin more rhymes than Lazy Susan, and I'm innocent until my guilt is proven. Well, thank you very much, Joel001. Mad Science Gaming, what advice would you give to someone who loves doing lots of world building and using it to run TTRPG games on how to turn that into books of various systems? I've got 8 gigabytes of world building. LOL. Well, all I can really say, and by the way, you 18 people watching, give us a thumbs up. Help this algorithm out, won't you? all I can really say, and this is going to sound like really straightforward, if not condescending advice, and I apologize for that, is you need to sit down and get writing. You've clearly written the world building. You need to adapt it to a system. You need to find a community content program with DM's Guild or with Storytellers Vault or Storypath Nexus or any of the other community content programs, and you need to start adapting your material to work for existing games so you can put it out there, sell it, get people looking at it, and then you can approach other companies and say, look at these books I've made off my own back, self-driven, essentially. I am a self-driven author. I've created all of this stuff, and I would love to work on your game line. The real, I guess, pit trap of writing RPGs or wanting to write RPGs, and I've got a video about this coming out soonish in a couple of weeks, how to get into writing RPGs professionally, is expecting the company you're writing that you will basically get to write on the games you want straight away. So let's say you apply to Onyx Path and you're only a fan of Vampire the Masquerade. Well, bad news, I'm afraid. You're not going to be working on Vampire the Masquerade, but you need to show willingness to work on games you're not familiar with. You need to show willingness to and enthusiasm to learn. What's more, if you pitch to companies to work on a game, they are not going to take a gamble on a game they've never heard of. Even if you have got 8 gigabytes of world building, they will want to test you to see whether you're reliable and get you working on existing games first. And so never, ever, ever approach an RPG company to say, I've got the next best thing, or my game is really good, I've got 8 gigabytes of world building, will you publish it for me? Because the vast majority of them, in my experience, will say, no, we've already got games. And they might be generous enough to say, we're looking for writers, but you need to start off with existing properties, show that you're a reliable commodity as a writer, that you can hit targets, that you can write to a certain quality, that you can handle mechanics as well as setting. That is very, very important. You can't just be a setting writer. That may have been the case once upon a time, but I wouldn't say that's the case now. And yeah, that's what you've got to do. Sorry it isn't advice like, yeah, get out there and publish it, all the audience will come to you. Corbin says, sounds like the fear of the unknown is necessary in horror, and Curseborne is bringing back that fear of the unknown. I like to think so. I think the fear of the unknown is massive in Curseborne. Our Dark Lord, could you explain what the Ministry endgame is? The Ministry in World of Darkness, I wouldn't say have an endgame as a clan. I don't think there are many clans that have an endgame, a formal one that's directed from on high. It's going to depend on each minister, isn't it? Every single minister is going to have their own agenda, their own interpretation of Set or Sutek or whichever god they happen to be worshipping, or cult they happen to have propped up. It may be a cult devoted to them rather than a god. So they're all going to have their own values and aspirations and interpretations of what salvation happens to be. So they don't have an end game, so to speak. You might have some hierophants high up in the Church of Set who want to resurrect Set or something like that so that they can become his eternal slaves, but I'd say that's pretty distant from the vast majority of Ministry experiences. If you wanted a Curseborne video game, what gameplay would you think would work best? Asks Awkward GM Corbin. I've always been a big fan of isometric RPGs. I first got into this with Baldur's Gate and Icewind Dale and those kinds of things. Planescape Torment, Disco Elysium, which I've mentioned already, Pillars of Eternity, they're all good. Now, the main issue with them outside of Disco Elysium and Planescape Torment is most of them are very combat heavy, and that wouldn't really work for Curseborne. We don't need it to be Diablo. But you could do a Curseborne game like Disco Elysium. I'd like that. I would be up for that kind of CRPG. And failing that, a choose-your-own-adventure style visual novel. I know it's very simple, but you can tell such fantastic stories in that way. You'll have to check out my video this Friday that's going out about the Gentleman's Guide to Vampires. Yes, there's a new Gentleman's Guide to Vampires coming up this Friday about the Vitostrix. You may not know who they are, but check that out on Friday and you will find out. Link the Vampire asks, any recommendations for an introduction to Chronicles of Darkness from Old World of Darkness? My group loves Vampire the Masquerade, but I've been thinking of giving them a taste of Requiem. Yeah, there's a really good jump start for Vampire the Requiem, as I recall, called Reap the Whirlwind. That's a decent one. There's some really good story hooks, some excellent ways to start off your game that are both in the Vampire the Requiem 2nd edition core rulebook, but also in things like Guide to the Night, and what's the one I worked on with the Elder Vampires in, is it 1,000 Years of Night? Something like that. Basically, all the Dark Eras books are fantastic ways of getting into Requiem, because each of the Dark Eras, whether you're interested in the historical period or not, are basically structured to just be a mass delivery system of story hooks, chronicle hooks. So I would say pick up Dark Eras 2, take a look at some of the chapters that have Vampire the Requiem in, and you will find a unique way of introducing Vampire to them, Requiem to them, that isn't Masquerade. Thank you for the thumbs up, Corbin. Thank you for the thumbs up to everyone. The Vampire Castle Gaming says, hello, hello. And then goes on to say, and I start my own chronicle for Vampire the Masquerade, which is going to be entitled Night by Tokyo and a Night at Gotham City. I've heard lots of people who've put Gotham City and Vampire the Masquerade. It is a very popular fan placement to put that city in. I'm guilty of the same kind of thing. I always put Junction City in my Curseborne games, and Junction City is it's a name that gets dropped in, and again, a second time I've mentioned it, Needful Things by Stephen King, as one of the previous places I think Leland Gaunt visited, or where he ends up at the end of Needful Things. I can't recall off the top of my head. I think he starts off in Ohio, and then at the end he ends up in Junction City, maybe. And otherwise, it hasn't appeared in Stephen King's work. There's been a few Junction Cities in Stephen King's books, and that's the only one, I think, in Iowa. So Junction City, Iowa kind of appears throughout Curseborne as a location. The various setting details that exist in the story guide chapter all theoretically exist in Junction City, because I wrote them, and I wrote them for my Junction City, and all the games I've been running for Curseborne are in Junction City. Why not use a real life city? I've done that for so long with World of Darkness and Chronicles of Darkness games. I really want to just create my own place and populate it with whatever architecture, bizarre as it might be, and history as I chose. And I thought sticking a failing city deep in Iowa was a good idea. You'll have to ask whether the actual failing cities in Iowa agree. Vampire Castle Gaming says, please call me Vampire or Vamp for short. Oh, sorry, Vamp. And my character Takashi is going to be part of the Bruja clan and the Camarilla faction. Well, good for them. Good for them. Treacherous, bootlicking Camarilla Bruja. Or Bruja, I should say. Historically, I've been calling them Bruja for a very long time because of this Spanish word, Bruja, for witch. And I was reliably informed, even read it to back it up recently, that they are indeed supposed to be Bruja. So Bruja it is. I mean, technically your vampire could come from Spain, and there's no way they're going to be calling it Bruja in Mexico. They're not going to be calling it Bruja. But to most Anglo-Saxon nations, they will be the Bruja, and so being in Britain, I guess that's what I should call them. Okay, Games by Mark Wolf says, hey Matt, it's Matthew, but I forgive you. How do the Ghostbusters fit into Curseborne as people way out of their depth? What movie is it where the Ghostbusters show up and then they run away? Oh, it's Casper the Friendly Ghost, isn't it? Yeah, okay. I don't know why I remember that. So, okay. Yeah, the Ghostbusters are, as they appear in Casper the Friendly Ghost, they arrive at a shattered space haunted house, and the only one that survives, what's Dan Aykroyd's character called? Ray, is it? Yeah, goes running out because Egon and Venkman have been digested by the house. The Ghostbusters are probably a little too camp for Curseborne. I mean, Curseborne certainly has room for camp. I put a lot of camp in my games, just in general. They Came From is clearly the highlight of that particular genre and comedy. I like a bit of camp, a bit of farce, a bit of parody. Curseborne's humour is darker than that. It is designed to be more satirical. Something I've written in the Curseborne style guide, this is for authors of the game, is it isn't always about punching up, because that can get, frankly, repetitive. It's about punching out. You can basically attack anyone if you have good cause for it. The best kind of person can have the worst kind of secrets. And Curseborne is a big game about secrets, about mysteries, about conspiracies, about curses that your ancestors levied upon you. So having that grandfather who's always doted on you, who raised you after your parents went missing and so on, that person could be the whole reason you are cursed. And I like that idea of, well, there are sometimes your enemy isn't going to be the obvious 1% megalomaniac billionaire. Sometimes it's going to be the friendly old man in the rocking chair who's raised you since you were a kid and is now saying he wants to sacrifice you so he can get another 20 years of life. He only kept you alive and healthy for so long because he wants your health. So Vamp says, technically Takashi is going to be held in Osaka, Japan for the Vampire the Masquerade roleplay game. Okay, well, I hope Takashi enjoys himself. Not Takeshi, of course, who lives in a castle when he's not making fantastic movies. More Dresden Files, less Ghostbusters, says Mark Wolf. Yeah, I'd say so. And you're starting the prologue for your Chronicle, Vamp, which is going to be entitled A New Life in a Vampire. Well, I hope you have fun with it. I never mind people coming to me and telling me about their characters and their chronicles. It's always nice to hear when people have been inspired. I hope that some of my videos have helped you, Vamp. And so, with that said, let's brave the journey. I need to get to this game, and I've had this cathedral standing behind me for quite a while now. We're going to have to brave the sunlight, I'm afraid. We'll walk for as long as we can before I get sun bleached and dissolved into ash. Ah, God. Sunlight. The bane of my existence, but quite possibly. I mean, with this sunlight doesn't do me any favours, gotta be honest. Could wear a hat, but who wears a hat? Making a statement with a hat. I like to go underneath the radar. I don't like people looking at me thinking, why is he wearing that hat? Especially that top hat. I think that's where I went wrong, wearing a top hat everywhere I went. It was a bad move. People kept thinking I was about to lead them to a cemetery. Well, maybe that was a good move. I guess it depends on my clan. What game am I playing today, asks Corbin. Tonight I am running Cold War Cthulhu. Was going to be The World Below. I switched it up at the last minute. And I'm going for Cold War Cthulhu because we are running 2 games presently. And I fancied Cold War Cthulhu because the group got to a really fun and interesting bit where their asset has been taken and ferreted away by the Turkish National Guard, and they now need to break in and either plug her because she knows all about them and their operations, or get her out of there. Knowing my group, they're probably just going to kill her and anyone that gets in the way. But, you know, you've met role players before, that's what they do. So, I appreciate the screen is a bit bright right now. I can't really help that. That's something they call the sun. But don't you worry. It'll be out of the way soon enough. Archlich, a bowler hat would be nice. People would look good. I think I would look ridiculous in a bowler hat, but thank you, Archlich, for the suggestion. Vamp says, what can be a good place for a haven for Takashi? If he doesn't mind minimalist, go for one of those coffin hotels if you're in Japan, although they're not as common in Osaka as they are in Tokyo. Good place for a haven. Don't go for a house. I mean, a house is an obvious place. Don't go for an apartment either. Landlords are a fuss. I would suggest the back rooms of a furniture warehouse. No one's going to look for you there, and you get a very comfortable bed. This by the way, behind me, very interesting. You see how the city has basically been built through it, around it. It is a part of medieval architecture that is just standing there, despite the fact modernity has grown around it. Obviously, that was the cathedral behind me that I'm walking away from now. And as I walk into the urban morass of the city, I'm probably going to have to call it there in a moment. Thank you very much, Mark, saying I could pull off a cowboy hat. It's not the first time someone suggested I pull off a cowboy, but first time someone suggested a cowboy hat. Concerned American says your books and videos have been huge. I am currently recovering from hernia surgery. Ouch! And I have been surviving by binging your stuff. Well, that is delightful. Thank you. I am very glad that you have had that surgery because you needed it. And I am equally glad that you are enjoying my books. Let us know which ones you've been reading. And if you haven't checked it out yet, please take a look at The World Below. It's so close to becoming a gold seller on Drive-Thru-RPG, I can taste it. So if you haven't bought The World Below yet, you or indeed anyone else who is watching, please consider doing so. Look at that, some Tudor architecture right above a phone store. Isn't Britain great? That's why they call it Great Britain, I suppose. We live in a seamless merging of history and present. And maybe the future as well, if we find an Apple store or something like that. What is your opinion about comments in political, personal horror settings? Asked T House. Is it important to include the mechanics or best left vague? That really depends on the nature of the game. I think that physical challenges, if not combat, should always be accounted for because some people like playing characters that are more physically involved, especially if they're not confident players, you know? Not everyone's confident playing a social manipulator or the puzzle solver. So I think having the opportunity to resolve challenges physically is valuable just to cater to the range of players you might want to appeal to, honestly. And having that mechanically available is useful. You don't want their challenges to just be hand-waved narratively while everyone else has got to handle theirs with dice rolling. Didn't you play a vampire who was a cowboy for the Camarilla, something like Camarilla first, Coterie second? I did. Very well done. Very well done. Good memory. Don't mind that. Very good memory there on you. Oh, we are getting a bit of lag because as we're walking through a historical city, of course, we lose a little bit of internet. So, the Vampire Castle gaming. Oh yes, Vamp. Because I chose Tokyo as my chronicle because I looked at it from my sourcebook, from the Vampire the Masquerade sourcebook, Camarilla. Yeah, I wrote Tokyo for that book, and it's only a small bit. The whole reason I added Tokyo was because I was intending, or this was written, the Zimishi in the core book, because the Zimishi were at one point going to be in the core book, their signature character was going to be one of the big dragons of Tokyo. What was her name? Was it Mayumi Shibasaki, maybe? It was a creation of mine. But regardless, the Zimishi didn't end up in the core book, and the version that ended up in the player's guide is very different to my own. Mark says a buddy of his recently moved to Manchester. That isn't my neck of the woods, but it is a nice city. It's a big city. There is no footage of me playing the Camarilla First Gangrel Cowboy, Mark Wolf. That was a real-life game. I don't remember talking about it on this channel, but I guess I must have. Javier Gonzalez says, is there any piece of law you wrote that seemed like a good idea at the time, but now you wish you could change? That is a good question. That is a good question. I don't usually... I mean, it's very... everyone, you know, has regrets, has things that they wish they did differently, but it's not something that really hangs on me. I guess that entire bit about, in V5, about some brouhaha being pulled from the ranks of the alt-right. Remember when we called them the alt-right and not just neo-Nazis? Before we figured out. Yeah, I probably wouldn't have added that, or I would have added more context. Because clearly when I wrote that, I say clearly, it wasn't clear to the people at the time, that when I wrote that, I wasn't necessarily saying you should all play as Nazi vampires. What I was saying is the brouhaha are a clan of reactionaries, and that means that you're going to get mortals from reactionary movements that aren't always friendly. They're not always your buddies, and they're not always looking out for the social good. And I think I was taking a leaf from previous editions of the game as well. But that very much blew up in my face, writing that. It was not the right time to write it, or I didn't write it well enough to make it understood. I think the vast majority of people understood what I was going for, but there were some who didn't. And yeah, that didn't go well for me. All right. Yes, apparently they did remove the Nazi werewolves from Werewolf the Apocalypse. Though I would maintain not... I know it may sound like a bit of apologism. Not every Get of Fenris is a Nazi. In fact, it was a very, very tiny minority, probably as many as existed in every other tribe. But, you know, we do these things, and designers do these things with the best of intentions, and sometimes it goes badly. I don't agree with it, and you can check out my Get of Fenris video that I did last year, I think, maybe, or the beginning of this one, for an explanation for how I would have handled it. But I don't hold it against the writers or the developer, the designer of Werewolf 5th Edition, that the Get aren't present. I think when you're writing something, as I say, you write it with the best of intentions, or you write it to a deadline, or you do your best at the time, and it doesn't always go well. And it may not be to everyone's tastes. And it may only occur to you, lots of Tudor buildings today, it may only occur to you after the fact that, that was another way of handling this. But, you know, it is what it is. I don't think you should get hung up on it for too long. There are some people who will hang their personalities on these things and say, because my tribe wasn't included, werewolf is dead to me, that sort of thing. Or because the La Sombra were changed, vampire is dead to me. And to those people without much sympathy, I will say, I am sorry that a previous interpretation of Clan Giovanni made up a great chunk of your personality. However, it's a game, and the previous archetype has not gone anywhere just because it's not in print anymore. It's not my job, or indeed any game designer's job, to cater to your parafixation, if you like. Right, let's see, we'll get a few more questions, and then I better go. I always viewed the Bruja as anarchist and libertarian, never socialist. I always thought a socialist would not do well in the Bruja clan. I think any political alignment works in the Bruges clan. The point is purely that they are political, and you can be a member of any party or doctrine or philosophy and feel it passionately, advocate for it, whether that's, you know, centrist conservatism, liberalism, socialism, anarchism. We could go on, and in the end, that's going to attract a Bruja to you. Okay. Was it Kyo Akashia? I don't remember who I wrote now. Okay. Right. I am going to call it there. And look, I'm in a lovely cemetery. So I should have worn my top hat after all. And I will be calling this AMA to a close because I've got a game to run. And I'm very much looking forward to tormenting my players, as I always do. I have never thought about filmmaking Archlich. I imagine it would almost be as unreliable a career as writing games for a living. I have no connections in that field, and I don't feel like it would be easy. Not that everything needs to be easy, but I don't think it's something I would be able to get into. So, as we walk toward the door, and look, we're walking on tombstones. I do love having tombstones beneath my feet. Anyway, I'm going to call it there, but thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Remember to buy The World Below. Bye!